Hey everyone, hide your drugs and stop having premarital sex because we're heading to Camp Crystal Lake to review Friday 13th and Friday 13th Part 2. Hey everybody, welcome back to Cinema Trip Reviews. I am Wyatt, once again joined by Alex here. We're going to be talking about Friday 13th and Friday 13th Part 2 because this week it is the first Friday 13th of the year. I believe we're only having 2 this year, so that does give us another chance to come back and maybe talk about Part 3 and Part 4 eventually. But tonight we are strictly talking about the first 2. What's sort of your history with these movies here, Alex?
I mean, I think Jason is just so synonymous with pop culture that everybody kind of knows the mask, the hockey mask, everything like that.
Yeah.
But for at least the first one, I'm actually probably first 1 and 2. I didn't watch it till I was much older, probably
Oh, really?
17, 18. I mean, I watched Friday the 13th, like Jason Goes to Manhattan, things like that. Like I've seen all those movies, but
Yeah.
these movies I didn't come back to until I was like, I really want to watch the whole thing. And that's when I finally watched these movies.
I believe Part 1 is the first one I actually saw when it comes to Friday 13th. That was just one of the ones that was at the video store. Part 2 is one I actually ended up watching later, at a later point, because then you go to Part 3 where he has the hockey mask and so on and so forth. But Part 2 is definitely one that I went back to later in life, but I feel like every time I watch Part 2 now, I like it more and more. It kind of goes up on my list as far as Friday 13th movies go.
Oh, well, when we get there, we'll discuss that.
Friday 13th came out in 1980, directed by Sean S. Cunningham and written by Victor Miller. The reason we mentioned written by Victor Miller is because of the whole messy lawsuit that's been going on. I guess it's somewhat come to a conclusion here recently. I know the way that it's settled is one has distribution and rights for foreign markets, and one has it here in U.S., and one has the rights to the Friday 13th name and a lot of the characters, Jason. And one has the rights to just Jason and stuff. Yeah. So it's so messy. They were actually, the way that they're going to have to do another movie, if they ever do it, is they're going to have to collaborate.
It's crazy it got that far. I mean, I don't want to go too much into it, but it's crazy that it even got that far into a creative mindset where they could just both be like, all right, we'll figure it out together, it's money, man. It's greed. Greed.
Sean S. Cunningham, he has directed a couple movies here and there, but he's more so known as a producer. He helped produce the original Last House on the Left with Wes Craven. He also produces the horror movies House. I don't know if you ever saw those, House 1 and House 2. Yeah,
I love them.
He produced those. And actually, it's funny because the director of the second one of Part 2 here actually went and directed House. And that was produced by Sean S. Cunningham. But yeah, he also produced Last House on the Left, the original, and he also produced the remake that came out in the mid 2000s. When the remake boom was hitting.
I have not seen Last House on the Left. I usually avoid movies with rape and stuff, and it just makes my stomach turn.
Yeah, I do too. I haven't seen the remake. I have seen the original. I feel like it's definitely a little overhyped because of that scene and everything. Yeah. Because overall, I feel like it's a very slow movie. But it's okay. It has its cult following. But the music done by Harry Manfredini, legendary status as far as a composer, because he's pretty much done every Friday the 13th movie.
He's done that same song.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's so iconic at this point. The dum 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 dum. It's kind of like a Psycho vibe mixed with some Jaws stuff in there too, in a way.
Even if me and my girl were watching it, and in my Blu-ray, the front of it, before the movie starts, it's just playing that and we're just sitting there talking, the movie's over, it's just at the scene, and she's like, man, this is a good song. And I was like, I know, it sticks in your head. She's like, I'm creeped out just sitting here.
Now, of course, as a lot of people know, this movie was pretty much, it's not a ripoff, but it was strictly made because of how much success that Halloween had in 1978. Sean S. Cunningham is like, we gotta capitalize on this some way or some form. So let's make a Halloween in the woods, pretty much, at a campsite, where it's there's some elements of Halloween in there, I guess, as far as first person point of view in certain areas, but pretty much that's it, other than being a slasher type movie and kind of stalking their victims a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's not shy about that influence at all.
Oh
There's a great
no.
show on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us, and one of them's about Halloween, and he comes on and just straight says,
Yeah.
like, he's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, this whole film."
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think anybody, because I think Victor Miller even said it as well. Is
Yeah,
there's no secret that this was done
yeah,
because of Halloween. Betsy Palmer is in this movie. She just chews the scenery in it. She's
love her.
fantastic.
Best part of the film,
Easily.
easily.
Of course, you get Adrienne King as Alice. She's the final girl of the movie. She returns for part two. And of course, Kevin Bacon. It's one of his first movies. The guy that played Bill is Harry Crosby, which is the son of Bing Crosby, the famous singer, which
Singer.
is like, I don't know.
Ah,
I've never heard of this, but yeah, I had to dive into it. But like, that's such a weird connection that Bing Crosby's son is in Friday the 13th.
that is a weird thing.
Apparently, the working title on this movie when it was being written was Long Night at Camp Blood, which, as throughout the series,
They bring
Camp
up Camp
Crystal
Blood.
Lake it's known as Camp Blood because of the murders. Tom Savini, legendary master of special effects, he did the effects on this movie. They're amazing. Most of them are pretty damn amazing. I mean, when you watch the unrated cut, which the only real difference is there's just a couple little extended scenes, especially as far as gore is concerned. They hold on a couple seconds longer than in the theatrical. There really isn't really like too many
Yeah,
like big differences as far between the version.
I think it's Tom Savini's arms in the end too.
Yeah,
By the way,
whenever, yeah, 'cause you could see like all the
yeah.
knuckle hair and the hair on the hands.
That's his most famous role right there. Tom Savini's arms.
But apparently, Betsy Palmer only took this role because she needed a car. She wanted to buy a new car. So she's like, yeah, I'll do this little movie. It's just enough. I can go out, get me a new car. And she had no idea that this was going to blow up as big as it did. And, towards the end, back half of her career after she was retired, she was still doing conventions and appearing and signing stuff for Friday the 13th, which is pretty cool. Victor Miller, the writer for the movie, apparently it's just he's known for he just absolutely hates the sequels. He feels
Really?
like he feels like Jason just should have never been a thing. Like though the intent when they made the first one was that they weren't going to do any more after that. They had no intent that Jason was going to be the lead guy, killer going forward. And he just thought the idea of doing that going forward was just a dumb idea.
Well, I would. I mean, he's the creator, but I disagree with him. I don't think these movies hit their stride until Jason it becomes Jason.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's so odd. I feel like, I mean, to me, I know we've talked about it. I believe when we talked about the Halloween ranking and stuff, I feel like Friday the 13th is probably one of the most like, except for maybe one or two, it's the most solid as far
yeah,
as franchises go. I mean, there's a
yeah.
couple stinkers in there, but a majority of them are pretty fun and pretty entertaining.
I think they are the first one, maybe that I remember, that really just leaned into it.
Yeah.
Like it didn't take itself. Like I feel like some of the even the Halloweens, which everybody knows we both love, but like they started taking themselves a little too seriously sometimes. Like Friday 13th was always just about I'm gonna show you fun kills. Like that's it. That's what the movies are about.
Yeah, I think maybe the only one you could say that maybe I mean it maybe takes itself seriously is the first one, but these first two that we're going to be talking about have, like you mentioned, they have such a totally different feel than
Yeah.
three, and I mean three has some of this feel of part two in there, but pretty much from three on, it's its own
It's starting to
being
hit.
at that
Yeah, it's
point.
starting to hit its stride.
Yeah, it
The
has
first
its
two are
own.
almost disconnected at this point.
Yeah, it has its own formula at that point.
Yeah.
But for those who have never seen Friday the 13th, the basic story at Camp Crystal Lake in 1958, a young boy drowned. And the mother was so pissed off she had to go on a killing spree. So, I mean, the movie opens up with the camp counselors just kind of hanging out, kumbaya by the fire, playing guitar. And then you get as every pretty much slasher movie in the 80s, you get the two counselors that are going full around. And, of course, they meet their untimely demise.
Yeah, it's sex.
But who
Can't
you
do
don't
that.
know. For 90% of this movie, it's just you're in the POV of the killer, so you have no clue
But
who it is.
but by definitely a man. Every time they show this
Oh, every
POV and they
time.
show a hand, it's a man's hand.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what they say, it's a man's hand. But that's a
Yeah.
man.
And another thing similar to Halloween, there was like 7 or 6 different people that played like the killer in this. Like as far as the different kills, just they needed somebody to
Step
stand
in.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened with Halloween. I mean, there was like 7 different Michael Myers in that first Halloween. It cuts years later, and it's just they're finally opening up the camp back up. They're getting it renovated a little bit. Steve Christie, a Weird Al lookalike dude, he's strutting around in his Daisy Duke shorts and and no shirt, just trying to set up that camp and bring all these counselors in.
Yeah, we follow the cook. She's going to Camp Crystal Lake,
Yeah,
like in the beginning. And I just gotta say, every man she meets on her trip to Crystal Lake is creepy as fuck. Like, I know it's
everyone.
a different time, but like everyone makes a fucking inappropriate comment. I'm like, God damn, like leave this girl alone.
And it always like kind of baffled me because like I have I assume that all these kids that are counselors through all these movies are somewhat like around their late teens, maybe
Yeah,
18. Like
16, 17, something
yeah,
like that.
like
Yeah.
why is this girl hitchhiking and backpacking by herself to be a counselor? Like she's a cook, but still she's gonna be working at a camp. Like why are you back? Are your parents okay with this? Like
She's like, I'm
hitchhiking?
leaving for camp. How you getting there? Oh, I don't know. I'm just gonna go down the street. I love the one dude who's driving her. He's straight like inappropriate, perving on her almost. And like she's like, huh, you're a unique American or whatever she says to him. And I'm just like, that's what she thinks out of this? I'd be like, drop me off, dude, you fucking creep.
Yeah, because she goes to that town and
Yeah.
she goes in the diner. She's like, anybody know where Camp Crystal Lake is? And everybody just like stops what they're doing and he's like, what'd you say? But yeah, that creepy dude like gives her like offers to give her a ride, and they bump into Crazy Ralph,
Crazy
who's in
Ralph.
these first two movies. Like, you're all doomed. Don't
He's
go. It's got a death curse.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
It's got a death curse.
he's a good character.
He is. He's a great character.
He's Scooby-Doo-esque character over here.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of like some of the like the characters in Stephen King that like you see like South Park makes fun of. Like, don't go over there. That place got a curse over there.
That's
Like,
him, yeah.
yeah, or like similar like Pet Cemetery or something with that dude.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he's like, don't mind. He's like, oh, it's Crazy Ralph. He's always going on and stuff. And then like while they're driving, he even tells her like, you need to quit. Just quit. Don't go over that camp. And he's like, oh, she's like, oh, you sound like your crazy friend back there. He's like, well, he's got a point.
Yeah.
He's
He's
like,
not that crazy.
and he like mentions it's been shut down multiple times since the murders. Like they had bad water or something at one point. It's always something that happens. It follows like with the curse of the camp.
It's Scooby-Doo shit, man. She's
Yeah.
poison in the water holes. She's
They should have did a Scooby Doo like Camp Crystal
Parody
Lake
of this?
episode. Yeah, like some sort
I'm
of parody. You know,
sure that somewhere on the internet. Sure it is.
while she's hitchhiking and getting a ride, you meet some of the other characters when they're on their way to the Crystal Lake, and they get there. They're introduced to Steve Christie, the dude that's running the joint, like I mentioned. You get kind of like a not even a backstory, but you get a hint that maybe him and Alice, the main girl, they maybe have kind of a history at some point. It's weird because he's definitely way older than her. So it's like it's interesting how they have a history.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not as like people, but like definitely as characters, he's way older than her.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He ends up kind of introducing them around the area, and then he pieces out. He's going to town or something for the day. And then you cut back to Annie, the cook, and she gets dropped off. And while she's walking to Camp Crystal Lake, another Jeep comes and picks her up. But you don't get to see who's in the driver's seat of this one, and you have a funny feeling something bad's going to happen. And sure enough, it does. They like completely misses her stop, misses the road to go to the camp, and she has to jump out. And she does. She tucks and rolls, man. She does exactly what they tell you to do if you have
That's
to
what
jump
I would
out of
do.
a car.
Hell yeah.
She just goes straight into the woods, and she gets. I guess I feel like if you keep going straight, you wouldn't have a chance of running into the person that was chasing you. But she
You
gets
can
kind
teleport
of
in the woods.
yeah, I guess. But you get kind of she gets turned around and gets trapped up against that tree and gets her throat slit.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's Betsy Miller in the car at this point. I mean, it's spoiled already, but I would get in the car with Betsy Miller. She seems like a sweet old lady.
It's like, oh, thanks.
Like, oh, thanks, man. I mean, when she didn't talk to me after a few minutes, I'd be like, all right, this is strange.
Yeah.
Because like the girl just keeps talking to her. And
Exactly.
Talking to her,
She doesn't
talking
say
to
a
her.
damn thing the
Doesn't
whole
say
time.
nothing. I'm
Like,
just
okay,
all
this is
right.
kind of creepy. Maybe you could stop over if you're not gonna
Yeah, next
pull over
stop,
if you're
I'm
not
good.
gonna talk to me. You're creeping a bit.
Yeah.
But
I'm
I
good.
agree. Other than she has the element of surprise, I feel like how does she end up killing all these people? I feel like somebody has to like overpower her.
Oh,
But I guess
we're
she just
getting
has the
there.
element of surprise because she's a nice looking
She
old
looks like
lady.
she does look like a Betty Crocker-esque old woman. She looks
like,
very nice.
I guess that's how you can fool some people, to get just close enough, and then you get them with the the killing blow or whatever.
I gotta say, and this movie's gonna be hard to talk about and I'm gonna bring it up. There's just a lot of establishing nature shots and stuff like that. I feel like the first movie is just plagued. It slows the pace down. It is just so many establishing shots in the first, I'd say, 3/4 of this movie almost.
That's what I was gonna say too. Is that's kind of what hurts it a little bit. There's really not too much substance to the movie itself.
It needs to go.
Because even when you're with some of the characters, it's banter going back and forth, or else they're using the rafts at the lake or setting up certain areas of the camp and stuff, and just fucking around. Like the one dude is an asshole, Ned. He's pranking everybody. Like he shoots that arrow while she's setting up the
super dangerous.
Like, dude, that's dangerous. What are you doing? And then he's the one that like fakes drowning whenever they go swimming and stuff. Like, dude, you're an asshole.
Yeah, man, we don't like you. I think the magic of Halloween, and I understand this is just copy and it wasn't, is that you follow Laurie the whole time, so you really feel for Laurie. This one, there's just too many characters you're jumping back and forth, and they don't really establish the main girl as the main girl. You kind of follow a little bit of everybody each time.
And they're just doing just ordinary shit. Like they're not doing anything special. They're just setting up they find a snake, and I mean that's one of the things that had some controversy, because they actually killed a damn snake in the movie.
Do they?
Yeah, that's a real snake. Yeah, that's been subject to controversy for a while now. But yeah, they actually kill the snake in the movie. But there's really not too much excitement other than like the cop comes at one point to warn them that Crazy Ralph will run around, spitting out his jargon and warning people. And that's, I mean, the Ned dude's acting like a dickhead, running around and like naked with the Indian headdress on and everything.
Is that a part of controversy now? I feel like cancel culture's got to get a hold of that by now.
I haven't heard anything on that one yet.
All right.
But I mean, any day now, I feel.
Yeah, I'm sure it's coming after this review.
And then they find like Crazy Ralph just chilling in the pantry with the food. She opens up the door, he's just chilling in there. You're all doomed, I told you.
I've been waiting right here to tell you. The bike's right out front.
I've been here for 2 hours just sitting in this pantry.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I actually do think the snake scene is, and sadly enough, like one of the better scenes in the beginning.
Yeah, it's actually something exciting happening, really.
Exciting.
It's just built up until you get to, I mean, you have the first kill in the beginning of the movie, and then you have a little bit, and then you have the cook, like Annie's getting killed in the woods, and then you wait a decent bit.
Good while. I would say 40 minutes.
Yeah, because even when like Kevin Bacon and the other girl, they go off together, they're going to do it in one of the cabins. That Ned dude's just kind of walking around, and then he sees somebody up in the cabin, and then he just kind of, he's like, oh, who's in there? And then he dies off screen. You find his body later. But same with like the Brenda chick. I feel like you could have padded this, like you could at least put some other cool at least 2 more cool kills in here you don't even get to see.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of padding in this movie. And I mean, you make a good point of it. Even just throughout the movie, they're not really doing much. My problem was more so with that third act, pretty much. I mean, you're sitting there just watching Alice make tea in the kitchen.
Oh, and
like,
literally
for like 5 minutes, just watching her make tea. Like that's all that's happening.
I do. Speaking on the Kevin Bacon kill, I gotta ask: was Pamela Voorhees just laying under the bed the whole time they're screwing?
She had to have been.
She was.
She was on the floor. They were doing it in there, and then the top bunk had the dead body on it.
Yeah. So she kills the guy, and then she's just laying under it. Like, and you don't think it'd be more like she got them both? She waited until she left.
They had to save that for the sequel.
She's a perv, dude. That's all I'm saying. She was just like, yeah.
She's down there playing with her bean. she's digging it.
It's like, Kevin Bacon, you're gonna be a superstar.
This guy's going places. But it's like she's real quiet, because lucky you didn't get the sniffles or had to sneeze or anything or cough. She's like, who's under the bed?
Just like perfectly still, bed frame, like almost hitting her face, like
yeah, just bouncing super close.
Like, oh shit.
But yeah, that's like one of the most famous, not even just scenes in this movie, but one of the most famous like kill scenes in horror history is the Kevin Bacon, like the arrow going up through his throat and everything.
makeup wise, death wise, gore wise, great scene, great kill. Like,
Oh yeah.
it looks almost real coming out of his throat. I was gonna comment on when the cook dies, the girl who's the cook, when she slices her throat, you can kind of see like the skin moving,
Yeah, you could
like,
kind of see
or
like where like the little
yeah,
slit's
it's
supposed to
fake.
be.
Yeah, but Kevin Bacon's death still looks great. It looks
Yeah,
fantastic.
when you watch the unrated, it does extend it a little bit, and it goes to a different shot of it where you can definitely see like the fake neck.
The fake,
Yeah, the
yeah.
fake neck. That's because it's like a straight on shot that it switches to, and you could definitely see where his head's just kind of sitting on it.
That's a good kill though.
Yeah, and then I think the one that goes almost immediately after that's a pretty good one too. With the girl that he was with goes to like the bathroom and everything, and she's going around between the stalls, and then she hears somebody, and then you get the axe to the face, and that's such a gnarly makeup like prosthetic they have with the axe in her face. It's pretty cool.
Also, I think that's the most tense this movie ever gets is in that bathroom scene.
Yeah.
Also, the next chick who comes into the bathroom too. Like, I think everywhere in that bathroom is kind of tense.
So dimly lit, and like some of like the lights are moving, and there's just like the different stalls are closed, and there's some sheets in some of the doorways. It's very creepy, atmospheric.
And I think we've all kind of felt that fear of like a public restroom almost. Like, I mean, it's not the same kind of fear, but there's just like, I've been to those camp bathrooms where like there's no doors in the stall and shit. And you're like, oh man, like,
yeah,
I don't want to be in here.
Just like a piece of cloth you slide over.
Like I don't want to be in here. So I don't know. That's the most tense for me.
While that's going on, you have like the other three are playing like strip Monopoly. Like Brenda ends up leaving. She left like her cabin windows open. And as soon as she gets like ready, she gets her jammies on and goes and lays down. You hear like the Pamela Voorhees is a great, great like throwing her voice, I guess is what you call it. Yeah, she's great at doing children's voices because that sounds exactly like a kid. Help me! And like if you're Brenda, if you're in that position, I feel like you would go and like go tell the others like, hey, I think there's a kid out here yelling, and then you would go as a group. You're not going to just go out in the woods by yourself looking for some kid that's not supposed to be in the middle of the woods. It's like that's already shady enough.
Yeah. And she gives up on him real quick too, by the way. She's like, all right, there's no kid. I'm gonna go brush my teeth.
Well, yeah, she goes there, and then I mean she ends up going to like the archery range. And I think that's such a cool scene that you don't get. There's no climax to it. I mean, she gets killed off screen. You hear the scream, but just how it's pouring rain and you see like the spotlight shine on her, and you can't see who's working the spotlights there at the end of the range. I wanted to know how she ends up dying because you see her body later just get thrown through the window, but there's her and that other person. I mean, three people: her, Ned, and that Bill dude. They're all killed off screen, pretty much. So I mean, that's three deaths they could have had on the.
Well, you find the one
in budget.
The one in the car. One's in the car, right? The cook and somebody else is in the back seat, I thought.
The cook was in the car. That Bill dude was pinned up on the wall with the arrows.
Yeah.
I mean, he dies off screen, but he's still pinned up on the wall. That Brenda chick gets thrown through the window. And then
off screen,
somehow, I don't know how Pamela Voorhees rigged this, but it's just like Halloween when Alice is running to the car that the Steve Christie, he swings down upside down, like outside from somewhere. He just he swings down upside down, like exactly like how I think it was Bob in Halloween. Yeah. How he does. It was like, what is he hanging from? And how did she rig that up? I don't think this old lady is holding this body up, trying to rig it to fall down. But yeah, everybody's kind of dying by one until you're left with Alice. And this, I mean, some of the movies does drag a little bit, but this part, man, is the worst because she's making tea and then she goes outside looking for him. And then she like comes back in and is looking around and sits down. And then she runs out and then she runs into Betsy Palmer. And then she's like introducing in herself.
How are you? Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.
But then she starts letting that crazy out a little bit. And she starts blaming these kids for what happened to Jason all those years ago.
And we're going to get to it, but with your tea, you never hear this tea go off, right? Not in the first
she
one,
just has it on the whole time.
Yeah, and we'll get to it in the second one. I'll talk about it then. But yeah, man, you're right. She just starts going crazy, and she attacks her.
Look what you did to him.
Look what you did to him.
I mean, we're making fun of it, but it is the best part of the whole film.
Oh, she's
Miss
amazing.
Voorhees going crazy is awesome.
Yeah, and like the
It's
little
so
like
fun.
voices, like kill her, mommy, kill her, get her, mommy. Like
She
she's
gave her all.
nuts. And
Whether
you
it was just
believe
for her car or not, she was just like, I'm gonna give I'm a good actor, damn it. I'm giving my
Yeah,
all.
you got to give her credit, even for like a low budget horror movie that she was just using to get her car. She put 100% into this role. Apparently, from what I read, she even made like a backstory up for the character and stuff. Like she went all in on it, like just
That's good
for this
actors.
performance. And I mean, it shows. I mean, she's easily, for the limited screen time she has, she's easily the best performance in the movie.
Oh, because she's given the most to do. That's the problem with this film is
Yeah,
there's just
true.
nothing to do.
Yeah, she's only in it for like maybe 10 minutes, but she has the most substance in the whole thing.
She's got a backstory. She's got character development, like all within 10 minutes. She attacks the main character though, and I gotta say the main character whoops her ass
every
so
time.
fast. And so fast the first time. Like she's not even a threat. Like, and we're getting into it. I mean, I want to go over it. But this main character whoops this old lady's ass in like what, 5 scenes, I'd say 4 scenes. Like,
yeah, and I think that's what really slows it down too, is because for a minute it's literally just her running to different parts of the camp and then gets caught, and then they fight for like hand fight for like a minute or two, and then she escapes again. It's just not super exciting. It's not
only is it not exciting, it's when you go into the trope of dumb main characters where you're like, you knocked her over, whoop,
kill her, yeah,
ass. I don't care if you kill her, but like your leg bone's gonna be out. You're not chasing me anymore. Like I am gonna absolutely whoop. I think in the beginning she hits her with like a fire poker.
Yeah,
and I would have
just whap
whooped that woman's ass. You know,
but like even after beating her once or twice, you're like, I can easily overpower this woman. She's not a threat at this. Like as long as you keep an eye on her or know where she's at, I think you're gonna be all right.
I'm gonna sit here with my fire poker. If you get back up, I'm gonna hit you again.
We're gonna wait till the cops come. Every time you try to get up, I'm gonna keep beating you down.
I'm gonna whoop your ass. So either stay down or get your ass whooped. You got a choice here.
But I mean, she kind of gets the upper hand a little bit on the beach when they get to the beach. She's like smashing her head into the sand and everything. But yeah, she gets up and gets that machete, and like we mentioned before, she cuts her head right off. Yeah, that slow motion. Yeah, that surprise face she has. Oh.
And this is what we were talking about, the Tom Savini hand.
Yeah, just like with the rings on, it's all hairy and like the hairy knuckles.
They're definitely man hands, but he was the one under the neck. The neck got chopped off, and he has it on top of him, which is good.
And then you do what anybody would do in that situation after you kill someone. You just hop in a canoe and float out into the lake and wait for help to come.
Which isn't a terrible idea. I mean, I know it is in the Jason universe, but if an old woman was chasing me,
but I mean, like, at that point, you decapitated her. I don't think anybody's coming after you at this point.
You're right.
But I guess, I mean, you never know. Maybe there is, like, she had an accomplice.
Whoever was holding that guy up in the tree.
Yeah, helping her put those, like, set up those bodies in theatrical ways. The movie was going to pretty much end here with her in the canoe. Apparently, they added the last part in at the very last minute. They got the inspiration from Carrie, which came out maybe 4 or 5 years earlier. I mean, Carrie has the jump scare at the end of the movie with her hand coming up out of the grave and grabbing the girl. But yeah, you get rotted, bloated Jason jumping out of the lake and pulling her in. But I guess it was all a dream. She wakes up in or not. She wakes up in the hospital and asks about the boy. He's like, "Well, there was no boy.
We just pulled you out of the lake.
What you're talking about?"
Yeah. And then it ends.
And then it ends.
And it's pretty underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a product of its time, even though I definitely can agree with a lot of its faults because there's really not much substance to it. It's a very, very early slasher film. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people even say, like, after you watch it once, it's hard to go back because you know the twist.
Yeah.
It's not that way for me, really. I feel like knowing the twist doesn't bother me. It's one of my favorite Friday the 13th. Just, I don't know why. Even without the substance, I just like how classic it is and how timeless it is. It's just, I don't know. I don't need the substance there. It's just the characters they have, how great Betsy Palmer is in that role, and just the direction and the effects in it itself is what stands out for me. I would definitely. It's not the best Friday the 13th one in the series, but I would say it's definitely one of the strongest, and it's up there in the top 5 for me at least.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you can come from two places in this movie. I think me and you being film people, being people who like this kind of stuff, I appreciate what it started and I
Yeah.
appreciate what comes next. And I love watching movies. I'm like, oh, this is where this got this and this became this,
Hmm.
like the Wilhelm scream. I have watched the movie that the Wilhelm scream comes from just because I knew it came from that movie,
Yeah.
like so that I get.
I
In
love
that
hearing that
sense,
till this day too. Like
oh yeah,
even in
love it.
newer movies when you hear it, you're like, oh yes, they're still using it.
And I think that's just like a film buff kind of like feeling. So I think for
Yeah.
film buffs, this is an absolutely buy it film. Like it should be in your collection, especially if you're a horror hound.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
on the flip side, if you're just an average moviegoer, if you're just somebody who's looking for a good time, all the flaws are there.
Hmm.
And it's just a watch it. You should know where this stuff comes from, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a buy it for me on that side of the coin.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say buy it. I mean, like you
Yeah,
mentioned, this
it
is
for me.
exactly it's nice seeing where these franchises start from and how and everything. But I mean, there's some of that identity here as far as what you see in the rest of the series. But like we mentioned before, the series definitely takes its own identity and has its own formula around
Yeah.
from part 3 and on. But I mean, this one definitely stands out because of how different it is as well.
Sure. Yeah, I don't hate it or anything. It's just when I think of all the famous slashers, Freddy Krueger, Mikey Miles, Chucky, this is the weakest first film out of most of those
Okay.
franchises.
Yeah, I can
And
understand that.
like I do like the film, and Betsy Palmer is awesome. She's awesome in this film.
Yeah.
But like you have to wait a long time till you get there.
Yeah.
So
And there's a
so
lot of bullshit in between of just kind of watching people just work, I guess, and
yeah,
just do random tasks and stuff. It's not like what we're going to be getting to here.
yeah, it's a hard film for me. And we just talked about how things move up on your list. This one moves down on my list each
Oh,
time I
okay.
watch it, so I'm a little
Yeah,
against.
this one kind of stays about the same. It doesn't fluctuate for me anymore. Like it's kind of around where it's going to stay going forward.
If it's top 5, it's 5 for me. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to
Yeah, I
think,
would say
but
that around there.
it's low for me, and even some of the dumber Jasons rank higher for me just because of the absurdity of them, which I do like. But that's another video for another day.
Yep. I mean, we will plan to do a ranking at some point. Maybe this October, because we did
Maybe.
the Halloween one last year. Moving on to Friday 13th Part 2. This one was released in 1981. This was directed by Steve Miner. Unlike Sean Cunningham, he actually directed some other stuff after this one. He actually went on to direct Friday 13th Part 3. He went on to direct House, like we mentioned before. He directed Halloween H2O, so he dove into
Hey,
the Halloween franchise for a little bit. And then he went on to direct Lake Placid after
I
that
like
one.
all those films.
But didn't really direct much after that. That was as far as like noteworthy.
All
But
right.
those are pretty solid films, though.
Yeah, I listen House. I think we should do on the show sometime. It's a very underrated gem. It's fun.
It
Uh,
is. I do enjoy
H
House.
H2O. I don't know where I rank that on my list, but it's one of my favorite Halloweens. I like
Yeah,
it.
it's decent.
I
It's one of
watch
the better
it.
ones.
And Lake Placid's a fun monster flick.
It is. It's been a long time since I've
Eh,
seen Lake Placid, but I do remember enjoying it.
I remember it up there with like the Anaconda films and stuff. It was just one of those
I mean,
movies.
they had like once after all the terrible sequels. I do remember they do have like a Lake Placid versus Anaconda movie.
No, I
Oh,
gotta
they
watch
do.
that.
You're gonna have to look. I've never seen
Yeah.
it, but I know of it. It is a
Let's
thing.
let's do that on the show. I'm excited for that.
But this actually went into production a couple months after the first one released. So they already were planning on doing another one, and they pretty much kickstarted it and went right away.
Do you think they
Um,
still have? Is it the same camp? Do you know? Like, is it the same filming location?
I don't
Because like,
believe so, to be
I
honest.
just wonder
didn't
if
look
they
into
just
it,
like
though. I don't believe so.
like had the camp left and they were like, oh fuck it, let's do it again. You know, we're here, everybody's here.
I don't
Let's do
believe
again.
I don't believe it was the same camp. Now, it was the same crew that worked on the first movie. Other than a director, it was most of the same filming crew that did the first one. So you have a lot of that continuity and a lot of like the same kind of cinematic feel of the first one.
A lot of boring established shots.
Yes, but I feel like with this one, you do get way more substance, and I feel like it's definitely written way better than that first one. You actually have some character development, you have some fun parts, you get some likable characters in there. It definitely ups the ante a little bit as far as, just like how good sequels are supposed to go. They're supposed to take what works about the first one and takes it to the next level and builds upon that one.
Yeah.
But you get Amy Steele here playing Ginny. She's the final girl in this one. The more and more I watch it, I like her. I like her as a character, man. I think Ginny's a great final girl. She's one of my favorites in the series. You get John Foray as Paul, and then Adrian King comes back as Alice for like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, which is a good scene. I gotta say, though, it speaks volumes to the first one that they sum the whole film up in the first 5 minutes of this film.
Well, I mean, that's the way it is for the first, like, 4 Friday the 13th. And, like, the beginning of every Friday the 13th up to, like, part 5, I believe, is they do, like, a retelling of, like, they tell you the events of what happened in the past 3 or 4. And then at a certain point, they're like, fuck it, we're just going to jump into the movie.
I just feel like this sum up is exactly what you need to know about. Like, you watch an hour and a half worth of Friday the 13th, and then this sum up does it in 5 minutes. And you're like, okay, I get it. That's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, because we watched them back to back before we did this. I skipped that first 5 because I'm like, I am not watching the end of that first one again.
That's what it is.
They definitely trimmed some fat from it for the beginning of 2, but I'm not watching the ending of this one again. Stan Winston was going to take over effects for this movie because what's his name could not do it, unfortunately. Savini couldn't do it, but unfortunately there was some scheduling conflicts, so Stan Winston unfortunately couldn't do it at that point as well. So he had to back out. Apparently, most of Amy Steele's screams are dubbed in this movie. I didn't really find a reason why they were, but she dubbed them. Apparently, she dubbed the screams. I'm not sure if she couldn't scream while they were filming or what. But the only other time I really heard of that was in Halloween Resurrection. The main girl in that one apparently couldn't scream, so they actually got another girl to dub the screams for her in Halloween Resurrection.
Really?
Yeah, it's
something couldn't scream.
Like, she just is not a good screamer.
All right.
So I feel like if you're like casting, you're gonna want a person that can scream, right? Michael Myers jumps out. It's not believable. Do it again.
Do it again. I never heard of that, but all right.
Paramount and a lot of the people involved with Friday the 13th liked Amy Steele a lot, and they actually wanted to bring her back for part 3 and possibly another movie after that. But apparently Amy Steele's agent was like, nah, you don't want to be stuck in that. You don't want to do horror sequels. It's not going to be It's not going to be good for your career. She's saying it was pretty much not going to be good for your career if you're stuck doing these like low budget horror movies. But she really didn't do much after that anyway. She went on to do like TV, and then she went on to do like, I think she was like a therapist or something.
That's crazy to me. I was actually thinking about this and just got a quick sidetrack to the first one. I was wondering about that girl working with Kevin Bacon. I was like, I wonder if she thought she was going to be this big shit in Hollywood. And like, she was like, Kevin Bacon, this guy's going to be nothing. And then he just became the big shit in Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, apparently Amy Steele even says like she regrets it. Like she wishes she could go back and do the other sequels for this because she really enjoyed how much she had fun making this movie. But I mean, it's interesting because she didn't really go anywhere, and then the chick that plays Alice, Adrian King, she stopped acting pretty much altogether because after the first one, she had a big time stalker. Apparently, like. It got bad, and then that got her out of the movie business. She was like, I can't do this. She did the cameo for 2, and then she pretty much went on and had a normal career. She got out of it.
What the fuck? Weird. Some weirdo ruining fucking movies for us. Because I do feel like Friday the 13th, one of the bigger things is it lacks a final girl. It lacks that like
a continuing type character.
Yeah, I mean, we got Tommy and stuff, and I know we get him later, but like still, it's not the. I don't know. It's not the same.
I agree. Yeah. I think you definitely, especially with the character of Ginny, I feel like she would have been a strong character to carry on through a couple movies. Because I feel like she's not the typical not a typical final girl, but she's not like a typical character in a horror movie that's just like yelling and screaming and running around doing dumb shit. She seems like she actually has a brain in her head, and she even used they mentioned in the earlier in the movie that she is like she's going to school to be a psychiatrist or a children's psychologist, and she even uses that shit on Jason later in the movie.
I love, yeah.
Exactly, and she's pretty smart, and I feel like if you had her going through a couple movies, you can actually build on that character.
And she could start kind of breaking down Jason, like I'm with you.
But I feel like it would, especially with Jason, it would be hard to justify taking that like one character to Camp Crystal Lake every time, unless Jason just like in the beginning of this movie, why is Jason like hunting down Alice?
Yeah, why does he even care?
Why does he even care? Like, who knows where she's at? Like, because apparently this takes place like 5 years after the first one. Who knows where she's living? So how did Jason just like find where she's living and then get there? Because how fucked up he is. He's just traveling around on the bus with his sack on his head.
Exactly. I know I said how does he even care, but I get why he cares. But like, you're right. What's the logistics behind that? Yeah. That he can find her. Like in H2O, he tracks down Lori. I get that. Michael Myers is just like a dude. So he could be just like chilling in a diner looking her up.
Jason's like a deformed brute.
Exactly. Well, I don't think he's a brute quite yet. Not yet.
Well, he's not as big as he is in the other ones, but he's still like a bigger dude, and he's all fucked up, and he's wearing the bag on his head and stuff. It's someone that's gonna stick out like a sore thumb, pretty much.
For sure, you'll notice him. Somebody would notice him traveling across country on a bus,
just sitting there, just twiddling his thumbs, waiting. But yeah, that's pretty much what opens up the movie. Is Alice just kind of chilling in her house? She's having the dream, which it pretty much just shows you the ending of Friday the 13th Part 1. There's really not much in this scene, so continuing from her role and everything in Friday the 13th Part 1, she's kind of walking around her house. You have the cliche cat being thrown through the window scare.
They do give you a good payoff, though. The tea finally goes off in the second one.
The tea does go off, and Jason's nice enough to take it off the stove.
Yeah, he takes off. The tea finally goes off.
I didn't think about it like that. You think that was the thought process behind it? Is like the director of this was like, that tea, like they didn't even go back to it in the first one. We're gonna
gotta go off. Yes, I do actually. When I'm watching it, I was like, hey, the tea went off. I was watching it like that.
That's some psychological shit he does, though. He's like, I want you to remember what you did. He puts his mom's head in her fridge to scare her and everything. And he puts that like screwdriver through her temple, which is pretty crazy.
Pretty cool.
But every time I watch this movie, I'm like, how did he even know where she is? I mean, especially living in the shack, he's cut off from all communication. Does he just going around looking for reading the newspapers, looking for
Does he even know how to read?
Yeah, does he even know how to read? He just saw a picture and he just asked get somebody to tell him where the address is.
And it's a cool part later in the film, but she talks about how like he's cut off from society. The only love he knew was his mother's. He never had any friends, so he just doesn't know like the wrongness of death and stuff like that, which is a cool angle.
Because she even says like he may not even know what death is. Like
exactly, like. So then it makes it even funnier that he's traveling across country trying to find
vengeance. He's going to kill this lady, and he not only that, he has his mom's head with him. Yeah. So is he carrying this head, or is it in a bag this whole time?
Like a bowling bag. I'm a big bowler.
I need to have some answers here. Yeah. What happened? How does this work?
Or did she move just into the same town that Camp Crystal Lake was, and he just stumbled across
it? I mean, who knows? Maybe. I wouldn't.
Mean, if she did, she's the dumbest. If you went through a traumatic
experience, why would you stay in that same area? I mean, it's going back to Halloween Ends. You just went through all this bullshit. Why are you staying in Haddonfield?
Get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out. It's been 4 years or whatever. After that, you meet the new teens, the new camp counselors, and they're not even going to it's not even like an actual camp. It's like a counselor training facility, I guess, is what they call it in the movie. But all these kids are there just to train to be counselors at all these different locations, and Paul and Ginny are the ones that are running it, I guess. But it's pretty funny scene. I mean, they're calling somebody, letting them know where they're going, and their buddy gets his truck towed around the corner and everything.
And we get our best character coming back.
I told the others, they didn't believe me. You're all doomed. You're all doomed.
You're all doomed. I told them other ones. They told him not to go there, and they did it. He's not so crazy, Ralph. That's what they better call me.
Exactly. They're still calling him Crazy Ralph. Like, no, he was right, dude. All those people died.
He's crazy because he keeps telling everybody he's right. I feel like this one is just it's way more fun. I feel like it's better written. There's more stuff going on. These characters have a lot more to do. I don't know. I just feel like it's way more interesting than the last one. There's playful banter in between some of them. Each one has their own little thing. Like the couple, the one girl that's part of the couple, she insists on going to Camp Crystal Lake since it's like right beside where that training facility is. She wants to go check it out. And the other dude's like, nah, I feel like we should probably stay here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I do think it's better written. The characters are a little better. My only complaint with it, and why it actually goes down on my list every time I watch it.
Really?
The first one has a good ending. This one's very paint by numbers. You meet people, they die. You meet
Yeah.
people, they die. Jason's not quite interesting yet. Even though I like the sack
Yeah.
look. I don't mind.
I mean,
the
you
sack
don't
look.
like I was gonna say, similar to the first one, you don't even see Jason until
Yeah.
like the third act, until the last half hour of the movie. You don't see him like in the baghead form.
Yeah, I don't know. This one, it's different complaints for sure, and I mean, I guess it depends on what I'm feeling that day. This one's just it's too run of the mill for me. I get bored.
Oh, okay.
I
Really?
get bored with this film much quicker than I get bored with. I mean, the other one's boring, but I think it's a product of a time. Where this one, I feel like it's a product of time, and it's not unique at all. Where the ending of the first one is unique to me. Where
Okay.
this one is okay. We know exactly who the killer is the entire time we're watching this film.
Yeah.
They bring up Jason. We know it's Jason. They don't like. It's not a red herring. Like, oh, maybe it's the kid who's coming back. No, it is the kid coming back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be my biggest complaint with it. Not that it's a bad film. And if you're in the mood for that kind of film, it's fine. It's got good kills. Like Wyatt said, the characters are much more interesting in this one. And the kills are fun. We're getting to it, but when Ralph dies and he like takes the barbed wire to his neck, I love
Yeah,
that
it strangles him up against that tree.
It's one of my personal favorite Friday the 13th kills. I just love the gore effect. Like it really
Yeah.
goes in. I'm like, how did
Yeah,
they
you
fake
see it
that?
like go indent into his
Yeah.
neck and everything.
How do they fake that? Because it really looks like
I
he
don't
gets
know.
in there.
But I
Anyway.
agree to you a point. I feel like for me, they do a good job of establishing really good relationships between the characters. It seems like they seem like genuine, real characters, and unlike some of the other movies, you don't really hate these characters. At least I don't. They don't really give you a reason to dislike any of them. They're pretty much likable in a certain way. But I think it's pretty much, it's kind of witty at times. It's kind of funny. Like they insert certain jokes, like they're kind of joking around with each other. Some of them, yeah, they're there because they're fodder. They're just there to be killed eventually. But there's even, and every time I watch it, I try to count. But there's more people in there. Like there's more counselors that are
that don't die.
That you don't ever see them again. They're there just kind of hanging out with them, like before they go to the bar later in the movie. They're kind of hanging out and talking, but there's at least 3 or 4 other people that are there that go to the bar with them that you just never see again. That aren't they're there, but they're not part of the movie.
Also, when they go to the bar, aren't these people camp counselors? Like, aren't they supposed to be like 17, 18 years old?
That's what I was thinking, right?
Yeah.
They're out here getting drunk, like getting wasted at the bar, the country bar down the road.
Does an ID, I guess. The guy who goes to the bar and the guy who gets his truck towed is my least favorite character of the whole film. He's just annoying. I would not like to hang out with that man.
Oh, the one that's part of the couple?
No. The one with the googly eyes at the bar where he puts the beer up to his eyes.
Oh, like the nerdy
friend.
dude.
Yeah.
The one that jumps out and he's wearing the mask with the spear.
Yep.
I like that scene too. Like the
that scene
where they're out around the campfire and he's telling the story about Jason and everything. It's so creepy, and I like how they bring it back. I believe it was part 4 when they insert that scene of him telling that story, and it's like we mentioned before how they recap all the movies. That's the recap for part 4. They have him telling the campfire story while it's showing clips from like all 3 of them leading up to that part 4. It's pretty cool. But it's a pretty I wouldn't say it's like an atmospheric type scene. It's all dark and it's just lit by the campfire.
Spooky
and then
campfire scene.
You get the prank.
Spooky
He jumps out
story.
with the mask and the spear and everything. But that spear comes into play though eventually. Jason uses it.
Why do they have a real spear there?
Yeah, unless he's just strong enough that he could use a fake spear to stick it through 2 people.
I guess.
But you have a couple of like the main ones. You have like the dude that's in the wheelchair that he's arm wrestling everybody. You have the chick that's super thirsty for him. That's like that's hanging off his arm the whole time. They're not even dating, but this dude just can't take a hint because every time you see him, she's laying it on thick that how much she wants him, pretty much.
Dude, the one scene she straight up asked him, she's like, "Oh, your legs don't work. Does the other stuff not work?" And I'm like, Jesus Christ, lady.
I mean, he's not taking any of like the 20 hints she put on him before, so I mean, she has to be a little bit more upfront with him.
Oh, that's not even the time he goes back with him. It's like a couple scenes later because he's like, "Oh yeah, I manage." Like it's a normal thing to ask. Like, all right, Jesus, man, because he doesn't go back with her until like maybe 2 or 3 scenes with them later.
Half of them go to the bar, hang out for the night, and the other half stay there. And that's where it's one after another. They're just, turning up dead. The couple upstairs, they get the spear stuck down through them while they're doing it. The dude in the wheelchair, that's probably one of my top favorite kills of Friday the 13th, where he gets that machete in his face and he goes down the stairs. That's just one of my favorites of the series. And the other chick, she's the one that goes up and discovers the bed. She sees them like in the bed, and she pulls the comforters up, and Jason just pops up. He's holding that knife.
Been waiting here.
And it bothers me every time because he's like, it's that scene where it's like a POV of his hand holding the knife, and the knife's upside down every time, and it bothers the shit out of me. He's like, turn it side up and turn it around. Ginny and Paul come back, and then it's just them investigating for a while. And I like that scene where she's like, I feel like there's somebody in this room. And then you just see Jason just standing there with a spear, just sneaking towards him.
Cool. Why did she help him there, though? Like, she watched them fight for a while.
She's like, Paul!
Like, hit that man.
Right? Grab what you can and double team, whoop his ass.
Whoop his ass.
Your boy needs some help. He's sitting there wrestling Jason. It looked like Corey and Michael Myers wrestling in Halloween Ends.
Oh, yeah.
Give me that fucking mess.
I mean, because Jason, again, isn't that imposing yet. He looks just as big as the guy he's fighting in this one.
Yeah.
He looks just like a man.
Yeah, and we've neglected to mention that Jason in this movie, he looks exactly like the killer from like The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yeah, Dust Down one.
Yeah,
he does.
Got the bag on his head. He's got like the flannel with the overalls.
Is this first or is this after? Like,
I think it's after. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
it's got to be hard for Jason too. He only has that one eye cut
out.
One
eye hole.
But like when you're running, I imagine that bag moves, or he's just like shit.
I can't see shit in this thing.
Can't see shit in this thing.
It's like the scene from Django. Yeah.
I can't see fucking shit out of this thing. Who made this goddamn shit?
After Jason's done wrestling Paul, she runs into that bathroom, and it's a pretty tense scene because it's smart. She's holding the door shut with one hand, and she's like trying to open the window with the other. And as soon as she like thinks the coast is clear and she lets go of the door and goes for the window, he's like outside,
through
the window, yeah. And then you get that cool shot of like the camera like running behind her through the house. Kind of reminds me of like an Evil Dead type shot.
It's a chasing.
Yeah, like similar to the first Friday 13th. And now it's just him kind of chasing her between different parts of the camp. Like she goes into the car and he like sticks that pitchfork down through the top of like the convertible and everything. She runs back in the house underneath the bed, and he finds her because she pisses herself.
Yeah, was it the rat or her that pissed herself?
I think it was her. That was a lot of piss. I'm pretty sure that's her.
I thought it was the rat.
I'm pretty sure that's her. And he's like, this bitch pissed herself. He like tilts his head, and he stands on top of the bed waiting for her, but like the chair breaks when he tries to
why is he standing on that chair like like why? Just get her.
And then the pitchfork breaks whenever he comes down with it. He's like, fuck.
And did she not notice him standing up on that chair? Like, I get in theory, like, okay, she scans the coast and I don't see any feet, but she didn't see him hop up on that chair.
Yeah, she wasn't watching his feet and see him just step up onto a chair.
Yeah, she got bored and checked her text real quick. She's like, "Oh shit, coast is clear, I guess." But I do like in this final chase scene, and a knock on the first one, I guess. Again, is that in the first one, every time she runs to like a new place, it's like body.
Yeah,
and I like in this one they don't do that trope. They're kind of done with it.
Yeah. She doesn't really run into any of them, really, right?
Nah, this is a more tense chase. This doesn't feel like the first one. Feels like it's scene, she beats her up, scene, she beats her up, scene, she
Yeah,
beats her up.
she's not fighting Jason. She's just trying to outsmart him and get out of there.
Just getting the fuck out at that point, which I do like better.
Yeah, and then she runs out, and then she runs through the woods to get escape, and then she finds his cabin, which we didn't mention before about the dumbass cop that stopped there. That like he had no business even going after Jason. I mean, all he saw was just a dude run across the road into the woods, and he was like, "That's it. I got like he didn't.
I gotta go
do anything wrong. He just ran into the woods.
I'm gonna check this cabin that I shouldn't go into."
And then you literally watch this old overweight dude run through the woods for like 4 minutes, and he stops twice because he's catching his breath. And then he gets killed with the hammer in the back of the head, which is like
another good kill.
A little coincidental because like the first Friday the 13th you copy Halloween, and the sequel to Friday the 13th you copy a kill from Halloween 2. That came out like the same year with the hammer. So it was like they both came out the same year, so I'm not sure which one came out first though. I would have to look into that one, but it's a little coincidental. And we didn't mention like the other girl and the pretty boy dude that steals her clothes. He's a dickhead. He's like she goes skinny dipping, he steals her clothes, and
that girl is slamming hot though.
You're right. True that. He steals her clothes. I mean, he's the one that like used the slingshot to hit her in the ass earlier in a movie too.
Which is a great scene also. I mean, I'm a guy, I got true. simple requests. I do got to say, speaking of the sexy times, when the girl wants to sleep with the guy in the wheelchair and she leaves to get her underwear on, me and Marissa are watching this. And I'm like, that underwear is way uglier, and it makes her butt all look saggy, and it's like brown. I'm like, just keep the black underwear on.
She has no ass too, so I mean that doesn't help. In the 80s, like every woman had no ass in the 80s apparently. But
I don't know.
It was funny too because when she's getting ready, she like uses her perfume. She sprays it like on her neck, on her wrists, she sprays it on her boobs, and then she sprays it in her like in her panties. And I'm like, that dude's gonna choke when he goes down. Like he's gonna.
You gonna lick her, but
it's gonna give you a headache.
Yeah, man. And these underwear were ugly. They were ugly brown color. Me and Marissa were talking about it for like the whole scene, how ugly these fucking underwear were. It was like, we hate this underwear. It's gross.
We missed their kills because he steals her clothes. Because I don't know what it is with Friday the 13th, the series, but for some reason, these girls are fine with just skinny dipping alone at night in a strange lake. Whereas like, I don't know why you would do that.
It's these type of movies. You got to get that tick count up, man.
I understand that, but just the thought process behind it.
Of her,
Like, why would you do that? Like, it's going to be cold as shit. It's at night. And
where is Camp Crystal Lake?
I mean, like, in the first movie, I mean, the location in the first movie is in New Jersey.
Oh, yeah. That'd be cold as fuck, dude. Yeah. Even at night.
Because
I don't care if it's summer months.
We didn't mention it, but that place, they rent it out as Camp Crystal Lake, and they do tours, and they do like on-set like showings of Friday the 13th at the lake, and everything is pretty cool.
Is that in Jersey?
Huh?
Is that in Jersey right now?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. They do it year-round pretty much. I've looked into it. It's kind of pricey, but it'd be pretty cool.
That's what we should do for your show, man. I'll go down with you.
Because it's all like they kept all the cabins, and everything looks damn near the exact same, and they sell merch and shit there, but they pretty much, it's just a tourist attraction now.
I'd be super down to go do that with you, man. We could make an episode out of that.
Yeah.
Like a little vlog style episode.
That would be really cool. Like we mentioned, he steals her clothes. He ends up running into like a trap where he thinks it's set up by Paul, but did Jason set up this trap? It's like it's like one of those traps you see in the cartoons. It's like you hang upside down. Yeah. But yeah, she's like, I mean, it's karma pretty much for stealing the clothes and acting like a dick. But she goes back and like gets something to free him, and he gets his throat slit. But man, every time I love how the way they cut away from it is like as soon as they slice, you see like the blood spurt, and the way it spurts at the right time, they cut away like at the perfect moment. Like
it covered the screen and cuts.
Exactly. It's just the way that it was done. I like how they did that one. They didn't hold on to it too long, and they didn't cut away from it too soon. Like we mentioned, she runs into the cabin, and Jason, of course, follows her, and she uses her knowledge of psychology and everything, and she puts on the sweater and pretends to be his mom.
You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased. Now come to Mommy. Come on.
and it tricks him because he's juvenile in the mind. He's he's mental.
Yeah, but he tracked that woman down, so not too mental.
That's true. you bring up some valid points. So, like he must be he must know his way around. He must be a little
Also,
smart, right?
Built that trap, hid these bodies, snuck around the woods, and didn't make a noise.
Right.
So not too bad.
But just because she puts the sweater on, he's seeing it as his mom.
Yeah. He's like, all right, that's my mom.
But I mean, it worked a little. It worked for a while, but I mean, right whenever she was about to come down with that machete, he like looked behind her and saw that head, and he's like, "Wait a minute, something ain't right." That's my mom's head. Something ain't right. But Paul, he's still alive. He comes in and saves the day, and they end up like not even stabbing him. They bring
like
that machete down through his shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah, which good luck surviving that.
Right. That like goes through your collarbone and everything. Yeah. You're fucked.
There's a lot of major veins right here.
They go back to the cabin. You get one final, fake scare set up with the dog, because you think the dog's dead earlier in the movie, which that's 100% that dog. So I don't know where the other dog came from.
No,
you see that dead dog earlier when the two kids go trespassing.
You thought it was that dog, yeah.
But it looks exactly like the dog that comes back. And so it's like there's two dogs that look almost identical, just around in the same area.
Jason's a monster. He's not gonna kill the dog, man.
But you have that fake scare because you think someone's at the door and they open up, the dog's just chilling, and then of course you get the real scare. Jason jumps through the window and he doesn't have his bag on. It's his weird, long,
the same scare as the first one.
Long red-haired Jason, hillbilly Jason, with his like bubbly head and everything. But yeah, it's pretty much the exact same scare as the first one.
It is the exact same scare. Yeah, I mean, this one, like I said, it is better, but it's a little too paint by the numbers for me. I would personally rank the first one higher just because of the legacy of it. Okay. So this one is just a rent it for me.
Okay. I would say buy it just because of how much I love the movie. Even though I rank 3 above this one because I really like 3, I still think this second one is the better made one out of like the 3 as far as like the writing and put together. I don't know. I just think to me it works. To me it stands out as a better movie compared to the other 2. Because the third one, that's really where you're starting to get into like some of like the stereotypical like characters. You have like the stoner character, the geek, and you get the mask. But you're getting a lot more of like the formulaic, slasher shit that's going on.
Before it was a formula, though.
Before it was a formula, yeah, exactly.
Created the formula.
But 3 is really where you're starting the Friday the 13th formula from there on out. At that point, Jason's a hulking like brute. He gets the hockey mask, and everything.
I usually do like this movie, and I just watched it before I got on too. So I'm surprised I didn't like it as much this time. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm just not in the mind space. So I am excited if we do like a ranking of these movies. I'll re-watch it and see if I'm more into it, because this is usually one of my better ones. But I like the dumb Jason movies. I like when it starts getting dumb.
I'll have to look up the next date that Friday 13th is here this year, because then hopefully we'll have to get on and talk about maybe part 3 or part 3 and 4 here, because those ones, those are probably like my top 2 in the series is part 4 and part 3. I don't want to
spoil my top one,
but we'll get to those eventually. But I mean, every time I watch 2, I feel like I like it more and more. Part 1 is, I feel like like I mentioned before, it's going to stay about where it's been for me all these years. It doesn't decrease or increase, as far as the movie rankings. But part 2, I don't know. It's just something about the characters you have, and I really like the final girl of Ginny. I feel like she's smart. She goes about it. She's not a dumb character. Some of the things with Jason doesn't make sense. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, the beginning is probably the weakest for me. Is like the whole thing with Alice at the beginning. Is like, why is Jason even there? But I don't know. Funnier. I think it's as far as a sequel goes, like the direct sequel from the first one, I think it does a good job of, upping the ante and doing what a good sequel is supposed to do.
Oh, I would 100% agree. And if what came out after didn't come out, I think I would appreciate it a lot more. But knowing what comes next and knowing 3, 4 and all the ones that come after, I don't know, it kind of hurts it for me. And
that's understandable.
just my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
I own the movie. I say rent it, but I own it, and I
Yeah.
do watch it. I watch it all the time. I do like the film. I just I don't know. It just didn't hit me tonight. Didn't hit me.
Yeah,
Didn't
I mean
love it
that
tonight.
happens. I mean, I look at it kind of similar to like some of the like we mentioned with Halloween, where like you have the Thorn trilogy, you
Yeah.
have a couple of the movies like 1, 2, and then H2O. Or I feel like Friday the 13th 1, 2, and 3 fits as a good trilogy because 3 it ends with Jason being killed, and you can easily end on that part
Right
3.
there.
So I
Yeah.
feel like 1, 2, and 3 that's a nice little trilogy you have there, and of course it goes on to the some of the better Friday the 13th. But I feel like if you just kind of put those 3 together, that's a pretty very solid trilogy there.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I do think these films are both good, especially
Yeah,
for their time. I
yeah,
mean, I've watched tons of 80s horror movies, and these are still they are a franchise for a reason. They are a good like they're good films. They're fun.
yeah. They're just well made. Even with the first one, with how not there's not much depth to it or
Sure.
substance.
It's got a
It's
great twist though.
everything. I mean, it has a great twist, but everything about it is it's well made. The directing is really well done. The music's great. The kills are great.
Yeah.
It does exactly what it needed to do, and I feel it's the quality is there with these movies up until a certain point, as far as some of the sequels go, like the later sequels. But for the most part, most of those earlier Friday the 13th, they're quality movies.
Absolutely. No, I agree. No,
All right.
they're good. I'm excited to do. I hope we do 3 and 4,
Yeah.
and I hope we do a ranking. I'll do all the Friday 13th. I actually we said it in the beginning of the film. Let's end on it too. I do think this is one of the better long-standing franchises where everything is pretty. They're all pretty good. I mean, there's some
Absolutely.
duds, but for the most part, they're all fairly good.
Absolutely. And I think the reason that is maybe because there's not, I mean, we'll get into that when we do the rankings eventually, but like there's really not much, changing in
No,
between each
yeah, yeah,
one.
yeah.
They're all very much like a cut and, copy and paste type thing, but
I think
there's
they
still
leaned into that.
quality there though. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's not like it's not like they go like I mean, eventually they go to like a direct to DVD type thing, but for a majority of that series, you're getting decent quality movies that are, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
well written, but they're put together pretty well.
I think they lean heavier when Jason becomes Jason into what are the craziest shit we can do with this guy, and he's not just
Exactly.
stabbing people. And again, not bashing on the Halloween franchise at all, but some of them he's just stabbing people,
Yeah.
like these ones, like, and I'm gonna bring up my favorite kill. Maybe we'll do a list, but when he's picking people up by sleeping bags and smashing them into trees, like that's
Yeah.
crazy. It's cool. It's fun as fuck,
Well,
like
but what I'm trying to say is like at least with with Halloween, each movie tries to have its own like story going on. Whereas like Friday the
yeah,
13th, all you have is like you have these counselors going to this camp. They're gonna be murdered for the most
yeah.
part. But
It's a,
each at least with Halloween, they're trying to do like they try to have somewhat of a story arc
I get
going
you.
on in a way. I don't know. I mean, you can easily just say though, like Halloween is a generic
Cop-
like copy and
Yeah.
paste. You're just Michael Myers going around killing people, but there's
Yeah.
usually some kind of story overlaid with that, going on
I
in the
think they took
background.
Jason to like a weird place when they start going into like the devil worm and he's in hell and like it does
Yeah,
start getting weirder. But that's for another
that's
day
one
or
I'm
two, I
actually interested
guess.
in rewatching again because I
I
haven't
haven't
seen
seen it in
that
a
since I
while.
was a kid. Was Jason
Yeah,
Goes to Hell? But
yeah.
apparently, a lot of the like I've been seeing reviews of it recently, and a lot of people are like, if you look at it like as its own thing, it's kind of a decent movie. It's just
All
like,
right.
but
I'm
I don't know.
excited.
That's the thing. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it because it's been a long
It's
time.
been a while for me too. It's
It's
been
been
a
a
while
long
since
time.
I've seen I'll tell you what I watched the most, and I might spoil my ranking here for you, but I gotta watch them all. I watched Jason X more than I watched any other Jason film. I love Jason X. It's
I don't.
stupid as fuck, and I love it. I
I
love how
watch.
stupid it gets.
I would probably say the first 6. Like I
Eh,
watch. Those are the ones I watch the most. Is those first 6 of Friday
Jason X is one of those things that if it's like on, I'll fucking like sit and watch. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll watch Jason X. Like, I know it's
13th. Not
stupid. And
I.
I know it's just like I don't know. It's the one successful horror franchise that jumped the shark with the space shit that I'm like, "Fuck, I don't mind this. This is kind of cool.
Hopefully we get another one at some point, man. Because I think the world is lacking
I
in
do too.
Jason and especially in like Nightmare on Elm Street and shit too. I
And
think we
I
need
don't
to bring those back.
Between the two remakes of both those films, I think the Friday the 13th remake is fine. I think it's a decent movie.
Listen, I do too. I think it was decent.
The Friday 13th or the Nightmare on Elm Street one, I get the
Yeah.
complaints on it, but the night or the Friday 13th one, there's really nothing to complain about. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a modernized version of the first one, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get to that one eventually. It's going to be a
Yeah.
little bit. So we're gonna try to keep doing these anytime that there's a Friday 13th coming up. So
I'm excited. I'll always be on, man.
any final thoughts on these two movies here, Alex?
Nah, they're classics. Everybody, go watch them. This is where a franchise starts, and it's a reason it's a franchise.
Mhm.
I think they're worth the watch, especially if you're a horror hound. If you're watching this series and you're getting to this point in this episode, go watch them.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're a fan of horror and you haven't seen either of these, you need to drop what you're doing and go out and watch them immediately.
Yeah.
They're definitely must-haves. I mean, definitely the first one, they're must-haves as far as being a horror fan. They're ones that I've been watching since I was a kid, and I'm going to be continue watching until I'm old and gray, because I mean,
Yep.
these ones are just not just these two, but Friday the 13th in general. It's one of my favorite horror series. So I'm always gonna be watching these movies, some more than others, but I highly recommend them though.
Same.
Where can everybody find you here, Alex?
We're gonna start to tap that channel back up. We took a little hiatus, just like
Nice.
Wyatt. So we're gonna have a new episode out probably here in about a week or two. So you can definitely find me there, or on the show. I love doing it, man. I feel like a part of the family here.
Yeah, man. Great to have you. That's the show for this week, everybody. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go check us out on Instagram, on Twitter, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're pretty much available everywhere you can get your podcasts. Make sure to drop in and leave us a good review. And we'll see everybody next week.